What's up guys, Mikey with Padbangers.com. Today we're checking out the Focusrite Clarett 8 Pre audio interface with Thunderbolt connection, and we will run it against the Focusrite Scarlett 18920 to see how much lower the latency gets with the Thunderbolt connection. Let's check it out. So here it is, the Focusrite Clarett 8 Pre Thunderbolt interface. If you're familiar with the range of audio interfaces Focusrite has produced in the past, you see exactly they didn't change much from the layout and how things are organized on the front. It's pretty straightforward. The most obvious change is now the bright red aluminum brushed front panel. It looks very, very nice. I like it a lot. They started with this aluminum red on the Scarlett 18920, but there it was on the top plate, and so if you mount it in a rack you didn't see it. Now you have the beautiful front panel and it looks just gorgeous. So let's check out the front and see what we have exactly there and what are the changes compared to the older models. First of all, we got two front panel inputs, which are Combi XLR inputs. Next to it, we got phantom power switches for channel 1 to 4 and channel 5 to 8. You can turn these on separately or all together, just as you wish. Next to it, we have 8 gain control knobs for all the 8 analog inputs, as well as indicator lights for the high Z input and the air feature of the new channels, which is pretty interesting. Now, all input channels, they emulate the classic Focusrite ISA preamps, and the air feature is just what it says. It brightens up the sound and gives it some air to breathe. You can leave it in classic mode, which makes the inputs very neutral in sound. If you have some vocals or some acoustic instruments that you want to really brighten up in the sound and give it a little boost in the upper mid to high range, then you can turn on the air function. It will make it sound just a little bit more clear, more bright in the sound. Very nice feature. The high Z input switches are not anymore available on the front panel here, not like on the older brothers. You can now turn these on in the software, in the new software mixer that comes with the Clarett 8 Pre. So next to the gain knobs, we have an indicator light for the Thunderbolt connection. We have the signal light for MIDI data that is transmitted, and we have a light for the locked sample rate. Next to it, we have the new styled dB meter. They changed it from these little dots that look just like the lights for the Thunderbolt connection. They now have this bar graphs going on. Makes it a little bit easier to read, and I like the look a lot. Then we have a main volume control knob, and we have some dim and mute to lower the sound or completely mute it, which is also indicated by some lights if these are turned on. And then on the right side, we have two separate headphone outputs with volume control and the power switch. Now, also what's changed to the older brother is the knobs are now made from real aluminum. They're not just silver painted plastic anymore. And this goes for all the input knobs on the front panel. Also, this is black aluminum and not plastic. Only the switches on the front are made from plastic. On the back, we have connection for power cord, SPDIF in and out, MIDI in and out, the Thunderbolt connection. We have optical in and out for more ADAT connections. We have overclock out, and then we have on the right side, we have 10 analog 6.3mm outputs, as well as 6 more XLR combi inputs. Now let's have a look at the new Focusrite control software. On the left side, you see the Scarlett mix control, which is basically the same like the Sapphire mix control from the layout and functionality. And as you can see, the new Focusrite control is completely redesigned. The older software was a little bit hard to understand. It was not too clear in the beginning when you looked at it and you know exactly what was going on. Once you got it, it's pretty simple to set up, but it was a little bit complicated when you first launched it, and it was a little bit too much going on. So now they made it much more sleek. You have different pages for in and output. The device settings is for the input channels. The mixing and routing section here is for the outputs. So let's start with the device settings. From here you can change your sample rate, clock source, SPDF source, and your monitor controls. On the bottom left, right here, you see some little information what these changes do, like a little help text. On the right side, you have the control for your 8 analog inputs, so you can turn on the air emulation for each device for each input individually here. You can turn that on and off. And for analog 1 and 2, you can also put on the high Z instrument input setting just from the software. You can also give these names like mic 1 and or here guitar. And you can save these as presets, and you can load these presets when you start up the Focusrite control software. Now in the output section, you see your different output pairs. They are set to stereo at the moment, but you can switch them to mono and then route them individually. And you have your volume controls, all that stuff right from the software, which is pretty nice. Now when you look at the old software, you see you have different pages for different monitor mixes. In the new software, this is not necessary anymore, since the latency is so low that you can set this all up in your DAW. It saves you a lot of work for setup, and you save your monitor setting with the session and not with the audio interface, and that's really cool. Now the big challenge: how much lower will the latency be with a Thunderbolt connection from the Clarett 8 Pre compared to the USB 2.0 connection from the Scarlett 18i20? Let's check it out. I'm here in Ableton Live. I fire up my settings, and here are my audio settings. And now you see we're here using the Scarlett 18i20 with a sample rate of 44.1 kilohertz and 64 samples of buffer. Now let's see the latency here. My input latency is 3.72 milliseconds and my output latency is 3.49 milliseconds, which gives it a global latency of 7.21 milliseconds. So that's a pretty decent amount of latency. You can work with that, not terrible. But now let's change it to the Focusrite Thunderbolt and see what happens. So now we're still in the same settings, and now my input latency dropped to 2.24 milliseconds and my output latency dropped to 2.18 milliseconds, which gives it a global latency of 4.42 milliseconds, which is a drop about 3 milliseconds, and that's just awesome. And with an in and output latency of 2 milliseconds, I doubt that this is noticeable at all. This is pretty dope because now you can use all your input effects from your DAW on your input channels, and you don't have any hearable latency or feedback in your monitors when you're recording. That's really cool. No more external effects devices needed just to give the singer a little reverb in the headphone mix. So really nice. Now what's my verdict on the Clarett 8 Pre? It's a very solid interface, really nice quality. I love the red finish on the front panel. I love the new aluminum knobs. They feel so much better than the plastic knobs on the Scarlett and Sapphire audio interfaces. I like the new dB metering on the front. It looks a little bit better than the old one. I like the new air emulation of the ISA preamps. If you have acoustic instruments and vocals and you want to give them a little bit more presence, a little bit more clarity and brightness in the recording, they do a fantastic job. Also, if you don't use it, still the Focusrite preamps are just excellent, very neutral in sound. The new software controller is really good. I like it a lot better than the old one. And of course, the low latency is just fantastic. No need of external effects devices for monitor mixes. No need of setting up external mixes in your mixing software. You can do it all in the DAW. So that's a big plus. I don't see any cons with these interfaces. Maybe for some people, the price point is a con. if I wouldn't have an interface yet and I had to decide, I would probably say I save up a little longer and get a Clarett over a Scarlett or Sapphire interface. Just for me personally, I think the new features, the new mixer, the lower latency are worth the investment. Yeah. What do you guys think? Do you like the new Clarett 8 Pre? Could you put your hands on it? Could you give it a listen? What do you say? Leave me some comments. And if you like the video, please give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel. Also, come over to facebook.com/Padbangers and follow me on Twitter and Instagram. It's @Padbangers. And I hope to see you guys next time. Peace out.